I'm an account supervisor at Zeno Group. My pronouns are he, him. I also lead our LGBTQ plus employee resource group, Pride at Zeno. So I'm going to have my colleagues introduce themselves before we get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon Powell. I am a senior account executive on DE&I as well as multicultural digital at Zeno. I'll toss it over to Q.
Hey everyone, my name is Quintus Burrell, and I'm a account executive on multicultural and DE&I for Zeno, and I've been there for maybe just a year and a half, and it seems so much longer. Agency life.
In a good way, right? Longer in a good way.
It's perfect.
So we want this to be a very conversational and engaging discussion. We have a panel, but at any point during our discussion, if you have any questions, comments, insights, please feel free to raise your hand, because at the end of the day, we can all learn from each other. So that being said, I would like to get a sense of where all the students are in this room. Please raise your hand if you're a student. Yeah. Okay. Great. I know where to look for questions. So a big theme of this summit has been intersectionality, a really important topic that we really need to dive in more as we continue our work within our agencies, companies, or even advising our clients. So to kick things off, I want to get a sense of what intersectionality means to the two of you, and in what way has it shaped your day-to-day work, and how much of an impact has it had on your professional experiences so far?
Sure, so I can hop in here, but also just wanted to reiterate Bryant's point that we want this to be a conversation. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, and we will toss it over to you all. It's not about us, it's about all of us. So to answer your question, for me, intersectionality really just is kind of putting all of the puzzle pieces together of what make me me. I'm a Black woman, and I think that because everybody has different puzzle pieces, they have different points of view that make them valuable because they have different life experiences than the next person, and that is something that you should keep in mind when you are doing your work. For me at Zeno, it's been great because I've had the opportunity to, one of my clients, for instance, is a natural hair company. As a Black woman, I'm able to provide social media for them, speak in a voice that's authentic to Black women, whereas somebody else who might not have these experiences would not necessarily be able to authentically do so. So I would say that to me is what intersectionality means, and how I see that it can be used in your day-to-day work.
Yeah, for sure, great points. As a Black man in this industry, it's not only intersectionality hasn't only shaped how I show up on a day-to-day or how I'm perceived by others on a day-to-day. It's literally how I perceive myself. I believe being self-aware is one of the most vital components in dealing with this, because knowing who you are allows you to sit down and view others. You also have the ability to perceive others, right? But practicing empathetic listening is extremely important, right? Doing D&I work, my job is to provide inclusive, meaningful work, right? So therefore, I would say just being self-aware, because there's so many intersecting pieces that has to form this puzzle, this complete puzzle, as Shannon was just alluding to. So I believe being self-aware is extremely important.
Thank you both, and I loved your analogy about the puzzle. We all have different pieces that make up the larger picture of who we are. And I think one really interesting aspect of intersectionality that was touched upon earlier was its connection and correlation to power. And I think as we continue investing more in DE&I and we get more people on board, it's really important for us to recognize the privileges we have to make sure that we are helping to educate those within positions of power and bring them along with us, because you cannot really get a sense of the disadvantages your colleagues and your teammates, your leaders might be experiencing until you get a sense of the advantages that you were born into.
Absolutely.
So the next question, a big theme of this gala obviously is mentorship. And one area that was really emphasized is when you're entering the workforce, just own it, take control. So when you are looking for a mentor, what are the things that you are looking to bring to the table as a mentee? So, as you are entering the workplace and you are looking for a mentor, what are the qualities and the skills and the experiences that you want to bring with you as a mentee?
Yeah, I would say I actually chatted about this with my table before we got up here and asked kind of what they look for, and would also love if anybody else has anything that they want to add to the table. But so obvious, maybe not obvious, but curiosity is definitely a key. You have to be wanting to learn. A mentor wants to see that in you. Another thing that really is important is being able to take initiative. A theme that I've been seeing throughout the day has been this idea of fearlessness and showing up fully yourself, being authentically you, being bold in who you are. And that should also be coming across as a mentee. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, to set up some time to talk to them, to create an agenda, to take the lead and show them that you really mean business. And yeah, that would kind of be the two that I would say.
For sure. Yeah, that's great. I would say one of the qualities that would make a great mentee would be the ability to be transparent. Transparency is extremely important because you gotta allow the mentor to get to know the real you. If you don't allow that, if you don't trust that person with getting to know the real you, there's no way that he could effectively help you, right? Another quality of mine, I always say grace, the ability to have grace with someone. Allowing that person their time, allowing that person to make mistakes with you is extremely important. Being forgiving is very, very vital. And I will also add in just being observant, sitting down, learning what moves people, learning how that mentor moves, how he handles certain things, processes on a day-to-day. You don't even necessarily need to ask that person a question. Just by being a fly on the wall, sitting down and being extremely observant, you get to learn everything. It's because everything is right in front of you. So yeah, make sure you're being observant.
Yes, Elise?
Hi. So on the flip of that, what is an action that one of your mentees has taken that or a champion or anyone that has really helped you in your career or really shown you what it is like to have a good mentor / champion? Do you have any?
Yeah, I do actually. Prior to joining Zeno Group, I'm coming from a non-traditional marketing background, right? So imposter syndrome, I woke up to that. I went to sleep with that, like, hey, do I actually belong? But having one of my mentors, a great, phenomenal person, knowing that he was my champion, knowing that he was having conversations while I wasn't in a room to certain people meant the world to me, because those people would come to me and be like, yo, he said this about you. It made me, and it got me to start to believe in myself. And I think just him being my champion is what led me to be here today. And it's extremely important for, to have a mentor that could really champion you and believe in you.
Great, thank you. Good question, Elise. So speaking of working with mentors and working on your different teams, has there been a moment that you had with a team member, a colleague, a leader that might seem insignificant to that person, but it really left a tremendous impact on you? And what was the impact, and why do you feel like it had impact?
So for me, I actually thought of I think it was probably the first time I met Barbie, who is the CEO of Zeno. She did not know I was about to mention her. And within our first conversation, she asked, what have I been working on? What do I want to do more of? And this was the first, I was a little intimidated, like this is the first time you're meeting the CEO. She's asking you these hard-hitting questions a little bit. I'm like, what do I want to learn more about? And I expressed that I'm passionate about DE&I because I came into Zeno actually specifically on the digital team, and I expressed, I'm very passionate about DE&I. So then she said, so what are you going to do about it? Or make it happen. So I walked away from that a little shook, wow, okay, she's right. Let me make it happen. And I felt empowered just by her confidence in saying that I could make it happen. And I was like, let me see what I have to do. I ended up becoming pretty close with the head of DE&I at Zeno Group, Andrea Richardson, who has been a great advocate for me and has connected me with a lot of important and helpful people at Zeno who have helped me to incorporate more DE&I work in what I do. So now I'm 50-50 DE&I and digital. So that was a moment that just really resonated with me and kind of helped me feel that confidence to feel like I could really go where I wanted in my career.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to shout out Mr. Granditi. Joining Zeno, he gave me the ability to carve out a role for myself, right? It kind of helped me feel like I belong, and it will work out as long as I, put my head down and put the work in. But he saw that for me, just envisioned something for me that I didn't even see for myself. And now looking back on it, it's like, it means the world to me. And he gave me the opportunity to come in digital, half creative, a hybrid, right? I love that. I was like, yo, this is the coolest thing ever. It made me really want to get up and work. So I appreciate that, and yeah, there you have it.
That's great. And as you can listen to our speakers, you never know the impact that you're going to have in your everyday interactions. The most simplest of things can have the most tremendous impact on your teams, your colleagues. Just being empathetic, asking questions, helping to connect the dots for them can really have a massive impact. I think I said impact 4 or 5 times there, so disregard. Question. Yes.
What both of you just said made me think of this question because throughout the day we've heard, how important it is to have a mentor who understands where you're coming from, share your identity background, and so on. But what you both said suggested were intentionally or unintentionally mentored by somebody who did not share your identity background, right? So my question for you is, how do you feel about mentoring across cultural differences? What are your thoughts about that? And what kind of attitudes do the mentor and mentee have to bring for that relationship to be successful?
Yeah, I actually recently had a similar question for you. We had a panelist come speak at Zeno about mentorship, and I asked, do you think it's important to have multiple mentors? Do you think it's important to have people who do not look like you, who do not identify the same as you? And I think he phrased it as you kind of want to have a team. You don't need just one mentor who looks like you. You can have multiple mentors of all backgrounds. And I think the key there is being empathetic and understanding that, yes, I might have a little more privilege than you because I'm this or that, but being able to understand that and come with a sense of empathy. And also I think one of the things that Q said about Grant that stood out was that he saw something in you, and I think that that's key too, is that you have to genuinely see something in the person that you're working with so that you can really champion for them.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And I believe having a mentor that doesn't look like you is extremely important. Also, having a mentor that is not in the same field as you are is extremely important. I'm all about knowledge. I want to learn the most from every walk of life, every background. So you got to give yourself the opportunity to do that. Sometimes having someone that doesn't look like you gives you those opportunities that you may not have if you sit down with someone that looks exactly like you. So I believe it's a mixture of intertwining both, all, and rolling with it.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, we'll go here first.
So I know that advocating for yourself for young people can sometimes be easier said than done. It sounds like that you found ways to advocate for yourself. So I'd welcome you sharing with the group, like maybe one way that you've learned to advocate for yourself as a young person.
I think for me, this has been something that I'm still learning. It's not something that just happens overnight. I think it really does come down to building that confidence in yourself and knowing that even if you are, mid-level or more junior level role, that you still matter and you're still important to this company and they still value you. So you have to keep that in mind. And I also just think that I know we keep talking about mentorship, and that's what this is about, but that really is key to having that team with you who can kind of give you more of that confidence to help you know that, yes, your voice matters, yes, what you're going through matters, your experience here matters. So I think that that's key, too, is building that group.
Yeah, exactly like you said, it may be easier said than done, especially when you're speaking up for yourself. I would say just do it. There's no way you would get better at something if you don't, take those steps and actually put action to it. So I would just say, like Shannon just mentioned, being confident, but you must practice that first. Looking in the mirror, speaking to yourself, telling yourself these wonderful things that you see is extremely important, and it'll give you that confidence. And once you gain that confidence, you'll be more comfortable in advocating for yourself in spaces. So, yeah.
Sorry, I have one more thing. If you all haven't read it yet, one book that I recommend that really kind of helped me be more confident and understand that it's okay to take up space, especially as a Black woman, it's called More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth. I read that, and it really inspired me and let me know, like, it is okay to be authentically me, because one thing that I used to do a lot and that I still work through sometimes is trying to I kind of would overthink how I show up, just because we're sometimes stereotyped for certain things. I don't want to come across as being too aggressive or rude or this or that, because then I'm the angry Black woman, or, I would shrink myself just because I'm thinking that these are how people are going to see me if I don't operate a certain way. But that book really did kind of inspire me and help me to realize it's okay to show up fully as who you are. And if a company, or even somebody outside of a company, if somebody you're dating, friends, are not accepting of that, then that's just not for you. Move on to somebody who will accept you for who you are. So, yeah.
And I just want to add something onto what Shannon said. The burden is not always on you as a professional to feel compelled to change your personality, who you are, or what you bring to the table. It's on all of us as well to recognize that we inherently have unconscious biases that impact the way that we see the world and interact with the world around us. So those are great points. The key here is just making sure that you are bringing your authentic self and you're surrounding yourself with mentors, advocates that empower you to do that on a consistent basis. So we had another question right over here.
Hi, my name is Fatima Njai. I attend Syracuse University. I'm studying public relations, and I'm a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so I have a lot of sorors that are also on the board of trustees for Syracuse University, and we often talk about how their job is seen to advocate for the smaller organizations that do represent students of color, and sometimes they're not really heard. So at Xeno Group, there's a lot of talk about how you guys, a lot of talk and a lot of action about how you guys protect Black leaders. So how can we talk about protecting Black leaders and creating this safe space for them so that when they do progress and when the numbers are showing that, yes, they're moving forward, their voices are also being heard and the groups that they represent are also being seen?
Yeah, so Q and I are both a part of our Black Voices ERG Employee Resource Group at Zeno, which gives us kind of that safe space to really feel like our voices are being heard. And then even outside of that, this is one of the things that I really do love about Zeno, and I'm not trying to just like recruit everybody for Zeno, but they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. We have company-wide conversations after George Floyd's murder, after a couple of other instances. Unfortunately, it happens so often that I can't remember which one, but we have conversations where we're opening the floor to create that space so that we are feeling like our voices are being heard. So that, I think, is definitely one way that Zeno has done it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Question, like a lot of the conversation has been sort of, or at least it sounds like a kind of hierarchical kind of mentorship. So I'm wondering like how the Zeno group, it sounds like you might be kind of culture that's been developed where you're actually creating allyship among like equals, right? So like people are leading sideways, not always like leading up or down. How do you create a culture where peers aren't just trying to compete to the next level, but trying to collaborate with each other and standing up for each other as peers?
That's a really great question, and that's something that I'm always thinking about. Because at the end of the day, we can all learn from one another. We all have different perspectives and different strengths that we bring to the table. And the idea of reverse mentorship is really key. I know when you're approaching situations where you're looking for a mentor, you have to recognize that it is a two-way street. They are getting value just as much as you are providing to them. And so I think when you are connecting with your mentors and your mentees, it's really important to facilitate these conversations where, as a mentor, you are asking about the experiences that they're encountering on a daily basis. How has their identity impacted their client interactions? Because those are ways that you can tangibly learn from those who are different.
So I'm thinking about this quote from Issa Rae where she said, she was like on the red carpet and somebody asked her who she's rooting for, and she said, I'm rooting for everybody black. I'm rooting for everybody black. I'm rooting for everybody Latino. I'm rooting for all of us. Like, to me, it's not a competition. I want everybody to win. So that's kind of how I approach it, and I'm quick to reach out to people and say, do you need, are you looking for a mentor? Do you want to talk through this? How are things going with you? I think it kind of, in the same way that we have mentors, as someone who's more mid-level, it's also on us to seek ways that we can work with people who might be more junior than us too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I get satisfaction from seeing someone do better than I. I mean, that's as genuinely as I could really say that. It really helps me do a better job next time in working with people, seeing them actually succeed. So therefore, it just brings great satisfaction to me to see someone get ahead. So yeah.
Okay. So I just have to chime in here because I work really closely with Shannon, and I hired and interviewed Q. So I bet you guys, a lot of you are thinking like, how do I do this? How do I get to a position like they are in? And there is some commonality here. One is they both have an incredible story, an authentic one that they're really proud of and that they very willingly shared with us. The second thing is they both have incredible just like raw talent. I remember interviewing Q and he would send me links and images of things that he actually made as an artist. So that really resonated with me. They both have a deep knowledge of black culture that no one else at Zeno had, and that our clients were like yearning for. So, not to just pat ourselves on the back, but I think we just recognize that in both of them, and that's why they, I think, came to Zeno and are finding success. So Q has mentioned it several times, and so has Shannon, about just the authenticity that they both bring to work every single day, and I just think that has been the key to their success.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Well, I actually didn't have a question. I just had a comment kind of around the hierarchy comment and a little bit of what Natalie talked about earlier when she talked about power. And I just want to say that what I think is working here and what I'm hearing is that we need systems because they provide structure, but within the system, if we're going to make a change, power and privilege are not necessarily a bad thing, because what's happening is, I heard you say you felt empowered. I heard both of you say that, right? And sharing that power and sharing that privilege is what is really working here, and that's what's changing the system. I think there's a lot of cultures, because they're hierarchical, there is a expectation that you put your head down and do what you're told to do by those who are above you. And by sharing that power, that system is changing. And I think that is what the model is. When we talk about power and difference and privilege, people hear them as bad things, but it's not a bad thing if what you're doing with your privilege is sharing that power and sharing that platform. So I just want to say it's really impactful and inspiring, and I hope that other organizations take that model and follow it. So that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's someone back here.
Yes. Okay, so I have a question. You keep talking about authenticity, and I think that it's very important for people to feel like they're the best of the word. What has either a leader, a peer, anyone on your team done to really truly make you feel like you can bring your best self to work? And how might you encourage people at all levels to do some things that help everyone make the
So I think for me, an example was one that Tanisha actually mentioned earlier, where I was on a call and somebody from Igami was speaking, and she was just being authentically herself, and that really resonated with me because previously, before I was working at Zeno, I was at an agency where I really kind of felt like I was shrinking myself and trying to fit into a mold. But when I saw that, that really resonated with me, and I was like, wait, we could do that here. And I don't know, ever since then, I kind of just have that in conjunction with reading that Elaine Welteroth book. I think I was just like at this point in my life where I was like, okay, this is Shannon, and this is how Shannon is going to show up. And I've just kept that with me in all that I do, because I think what you have to realize is what makes you uniquely you is what is your superpower. So own that, and you have to kind of tell yourself that every day going into work. That some people might not get it, but that is what makes you uniquely you. So I think that that's kind of the key for me.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I go back to the ability to have grace. When you have a leader in your organization that takes their time with you and allow you to make those mistakes, don't judge you for it, being very forgiving with you, it really helps and makes it all the better. And also, I would say authentically, when a leader, let's step aside from just a leader. When someone champions you, right, and you hear about those things, it makes you feel so good about yourself. It makes you want to show up exactly who you are. But also, when you have a leader doing those things in an organization, that is so important. And it just makes you want to show up your authentic self, and you feel like you're good enough. You feel like you belong in the space. And that's extremely important when you have leaders championing you. When you hop on calls and you're being told that so-and-so said this about you. And you're like, really? Wow. Let me do that more. You get what I'm saying? Let me just, all I did was show up and be myself. Let me do that a little bit more. So yeah, it's extremely important when you have leaders championing you.
One of the things that I keep hearing from the both of you as you talk about being able to show up your authentic selves is the influence that company culture plays in that, and how it's really important that in order for you to be able to show up your authentic self, that you feel like you're in a culture that's allowing you to do that. So just a thought, because I feel like that company culture piece isn't fully being acknowledged here, which is really important, and I think is a powerful part of the conversation.
No, that's a great point. Great point. We make it a point of emphasis to have a culture crew within our job. like he really wants this to be like, for instance, getting back into the office was, not easy. Coming off the pandemic, you kind of wanted to stay at home, but making sure you're cultivating a culture in the workplace helps that out a lot. When you have certain events that's being thrown, certain things within the office, it could be something as little as, we're going to get lunch for you guys on this day. We're going to have an interview on the terrace. You just want to get up, get to work, and culture is extremely important. You're so correct.
Over here.
Asking for maybe the students in the room and then maybe the introverts or I forgot what we called them, superior skill. Yes. Folks in the room, I think it's really easy to talk long-term about what your mentorship goals are or what your networking goals are, but to really be actionable and like this evening, when we break out to that portion, as you all who have attended this event before, what are things like immediately tonight that you would act on as far as networking or, finding a mentor in the room to connect with?
Yeah, I would say walk up directly to them and ask questions. Walk up on them.
Yeah, I agree. As someone who is I'm an extroverted introvert. Like, I don't know, networking sometimes scares me, but I feel like you kind of just have to, if you really want to do it, you have to step up and maybe if you are a little more introverted and didn't get the chance, find them on LinkedIn. Hit them up. You might have a little less, they might be busy and might not see it for a while, but that would be my recommendation. Find them on LinkedIn, say, hey, it was great. Speak to something that they talked about. If they're on a panel, say, hey, you were great when you spoke about this, so that you're making that connection with them so that they know that you were really listening. And that's one way to connect too if you don't get the chance to talk to them in person.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important also when you're going into those situations where you're a little scared to network or reach out to somebody, just remember that everybody here has been in the same situation as you, and they got to where they are because they had somebody mentor and advocate them and brought them along. So find comfort in that, and that they are more than likely willing to pay it forward as well. And I think, I'm sorry that we're... Okay.
So I wanted to just leave you, but also the room with a thought. The word scared has come up a couple of times here, or I felt empowered, but I felt a little shaken or whatever. I just had a conversation about this with some students earlier this week. We were talking about the role of the new CCO and the role of communications and how empowering that is for our profession and all the things that are happening in corporate world right now. And so the students, two of the students that were leading this discussion threw out a question to the group. Do you feel empowered or do you feel scared? And so they had different answers, but I want to just share what my answer was. And my answer was, I hope you feel both. Because we all feel fear at some point or another. We all feel hesitancy about one thing or another. The essence of leadership, of power, of courage, is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to manage that, recognize it, and channel that in a certain way. This is so it's just commenting here. This is not high school dating. This is business, and you are entitled. You belong in this room. And you've been empowered already. You're here. So just every time you start feeling that little bit of a clutch in your throat or that little bit of hesitation, just remember you belong there. You are the future of our profession, and don't feel bad about that sense of fear that you're feeling. Use it. Build on it. Make that your superpower. That in combination with the sense of empowerment. And I can tell you that it'll lead to a very rewarding career.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Very nicely done. Way to accomplish.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have one more thing to do before we wrap it up.